our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. It's Sunday, March 19th, 2023. Welcome to the African History Network show. The calling number is 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. Okay, so Thursday, March 16th, I was on Faraji Muhammad's show, The Culture, and Suzette Speaks was sitting in for Faraji Muhammad. We discussed the reparations efforts that are going on in San Francisco and California in general, the California Reparations Task Force. We talked about that. And we talked about San Francisco. And this past week, at a meeting that was held on Tuesday, you had over 100 recommendations that were made to the city-appointed reparations committee. And one that has gotten a lot of attention, unfortunately, because it's not going to happen, one that's gotten a lot of attention is a one-time payment of $5 million to every eligible African-American citizen there in San Francisco. So we talked about this on Faraji Muhammad Show, The Culture. And then we know that the San Francisco chapter of the NAACP, they put out a statement and they said that they were calling on the board to reject the $5 million payment idea for every eligible African-American in San Francisco. So Dr. Amos Brown, who is the president of the NAACP chapter there in San Francisco, he was on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday to address those issues. Now, as I said on Faraji's show last week, as I said 2 weeks ago, and this past Thursday, that's not going to happen, $5 million. I don't even know why people are going crazy over that. That's not realistic. The annual budget for the city of San Francisco is $14 billion a year. They're facing a $728 million budget deficit over the next 2 years. And if they gave $5 million to 20,000 African Americans out of 50,000, that'd be $100 billion. If you understand math, you know that's not going to happen, period. All right. But we discussed it, and I dealt with a lot of history on Faraji's show, The Culture, and we talked about this also on Roland Martin Unfiltered. So we'll discuss that. And also what I wanted to do is something that hasn't happened on a lot of these, I don't think it's happened at all, really, a lot of these shows, a lot of these discussions. I want to show you the executive summary of the 500-page study that the California Reparations Task Force did. People should go through and read the entire study. I'm going through reading it now, but the executive summary is 28 pages, and it covers a lot of history because California, generally speaking, does not have a history of slavery, and neither does San Francisco, because California comes into the Union in 1850 as a free state, okay, because of the compromise of 1850. And they don't have a history of slavery, but they do have a rampant history of racism, segregation, redlining, housing discrimination, voter suppression, discrimination when it comes to jobs, getting bank loans. There's a history of expressways coming through various African-American communities, wiping out businesses, wiping out homes, etc. So there's a rampant history of that in California, but also in San Francisco. So we'll discuss that on today's show also. Now, the Friday was St. Patrick's Day. And today I did a 2-hour plus broadcast dealing with should African Americans celebrate St. Patrick's Day? Should African Americans celebrate St. Patrick's Day? It's on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. You can go back and check it out. It'll be an audio podcast format also. So we're going to upload it to audio podcast tonight. So you'll be able to watch that on, listen to it on about 9 different audio podcast platforms: iHeartRadio, iTunes, Castbox, FM Player, TuneIn, Stitcher, etc. Okay, so wherever you get your audio podcasts from, search for the African History Network show. We'll talk a little bit about should African Americans celebrate St. Patrick's Day and what it is that you're actually participating in when you celebrate it. Now, also coming out of California, this was a story I wanted to talk about Thursday on Faraji's show, The Culture, but we did not get a chance. We didn't get a chance to deal with it. This talks about the Freedmen's Bureau and why an 1860s agency that helped newly freed African Americans might return to California. And one of the things that they're talking about in California, and they have the study that they did is comprehensive. Everybody should read it. It's a real history lesson. And unfortunately, Americans are very ignorant of history. Not just African Americans, but Americans in general are very ignorant of history. The Freedmen's Bureau was created in 1865 to help assist newly freed African Americans, help them gain jobs, acquire land, help them find lost loved ones and marry. It helped in various ways with healthcare, different things like this. There's an article from NBC News, why an 1860s agency that helped newly freed Blacks might return in California. And this also is coming from the California Reparations Task Force. The California Reparations Task Force will recommend a new version of the Freedmen's Bureau administer any potential reparations programs. Okay, so we didn't get a chance to talk about that on Faraji's show when I was on Thursday, because this article came out Tuesday, March 14th. So I want to cover this today because the Freedmen's Bureau was created during Reconstruction. Okay, it's basically created during Reconstruction in this country. And originally it was only funded for 1 year, then it's going to be extended. Okay, but we need something like that again today, as well as getting the results of the Kerner Commission from 1968 enforced also. Another story, now a story that I did not get a chance to get to last Sunday because we ran out of time, is dealing with Newark, New Jersey. Harriet Tubman Monument replaces Christopher Columbus in Newark, New Jersey. We'll talk about that a little bit. And along the theme of repairing the damage of the legacy of racism and Jim Crow segregation, et cetera, and policies, especially coming from the federal government. You've heard me talk about before how World War II veterans, African-American World War II veterans, were discriminated against when it came to using the benefits of the GI Bill, okay? And we know the GI Bill was signed into law in June 22nd, 1944, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, toward the end of World War II, and is going to change the landscape of this country when it comes to who goes to college. It's going to help a lot of white veterans buy homes, go to college, and start businesses, create generational wealth, and pass on generational wealth to their families. Well, many African Americans, there were 1.2 million World War II African American World War II veterans, and many African American veterans were discriminated against when it came to using these benefits one way or another, and we were largely locked out of that wealth creation, even though we earned the benefits and our taxpayer dollars were paying for it. So there's an article from thegrio.com for March 3rd that deals with this topic also. So we're going to talk about that as well. House Democrats reintroduce GI Bill to help Black veterans and descendants receive overdue benefits. House Democrats reintroduce GI Bill to help Black veterans and descendants receive overdue benefits. Okay. And I'm not certain on how many Republicans actually support this, but I don't think as many. Okay. Don't hold your breath on this one for Republicans supporting this one, especially when it's something dealing with racism. Okay. Because they want to say that systemic racism doesn't exist and you're being divisive, and why you're talking about old stuff and that was in the past, and look, we have Black millionaires today, so you all, don't need handouts or anything like that. Okay. So we'll talk about this and a lot more on today's show. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Bathroom break in 2 minutes. Stand by. Bathroom break in 1 minute. Bathroom break in 1 minute. Stand by. Where's the NBC News?
And the facts. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the After-History Network Show. We do recurring events of history and much, much more. We're going to give you an update on what's going on. This is about self-preservation. We have to extinguish the fire of white supremacy. See, elections have consequences. Catch it all right here on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation, the Future of Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, March 19th, 2023, and we are live. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. Okay, we're going to jump right in to our first story here. Okay, so there's a good article from ABC Channel 7 in San Francisco, California, that deals with the San Francisco Reparations Task Force. We'll talk about San Francisco, and we'll also talk about what's going on with California's Reparation Task Force. This article is from Thursday, March 16th, 2023. SF, San Francisco supervisors voice early support to provide reparations to Black residents, includes $5 million payment. Okay, don't get $1 million payment. It's not going to happen. If you understand math, it's not going to happen. But San Francisco supervisors voiced early support to provide reparations to Black for enduring systemic racism over the past 200 years. Now the 100 plus recommendations the supervisors heard from, and the 100 plus recommendations that supervisors heard from an advisory committee on Tuesday, this past Tuesday, which was March 14th, included $5 million payouts to every eligible Black adult, personal debt and tax burden relief, personal debt and tax burden relief, guaranteed annual incomes of $97,000 a year. That's not going to happen either. Don't hold your breath on that. And selling homes in the city for just $1. Now, other ideas mentioned were adding Black history and culture curriculums in schools. We need that regardless. And the history of African Americans has to be taught in every across the country. This is something that Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who co-founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, September 9th, 1915, in Chicago, talked about, as well as he created Negro History Week, which became Black History Month. So we need that, period. Okay, especially with the attack on the teaching of African American history in various schools in various states. Free healthcare services for people in need and better support for Black businesses and employees. Now, those supervisors expressed interest in the suggestions. The first in the nation draft plan has yet to be formally approved. No checks are going out. Okay, don't look in your mailbox if you in San Francisco waiting on your reparations checks. It's not happening. The first in the nation draft plan has yet to be formally approved. Supervisors have opportunities to modify or reject any or all recommendations before the final report will be presented in September. Okay, then there's a vote that's going to take place in October on the recommendations. Proponents of the plan say reparations will help rectify the centuries of slavery and racism that prohibited generations of Black people from having equal opportunities to thrive in San Francisco. Now, San Francisco doesn't have a history of slavery, so I don't know why they put slavery in there. Racism, absolutely. Slavery, no, not really. And in California really doesn't have a history of slavery. California came into the Union in 1850 as a free state. Now, they have identified about 1,500 people of African descent in about the 1850s or so, maybe a little later, that were in like a semi-slavery status. It's like 1,500, not 150,000, 1,500. But California, when it becomes a state in the Union in 1850, it comes to the Union as a free state. Now, they did pass a Fugitive Slave Act in 1852 in California. California does have a rampant history of racism and segregation and redlining doing harm to African Americans. But it's important that we understand what the remedy is for. Okay, it's important that we understand what the remedy is for. All right, now let's continue. So staff members from the African American Reparations Advisory Committee found that the city fostered a legacy of civic disinvestment to Black people, especially in its urban renewal period, when urban planning policies from the 1950s to the 1970s aggressively tried to improve predominantly Black neighborhoods like the Western Addition and Fillmore District. The redevelopment process was said to have displaced thousands of people from their homes without compensation and with little room for discussion. Since then, the city's Black population steadily decreased in size, likely because of fewer housing options and greater wealth disparities, said the advisory committee. Now, despite making up less than 6% of the city of San Francisco's population, African Americans made 8% of the residents sleeping in San Francisco's streets and. Okay, so I want to go to let's go to clip number one here, Doug. This is from this is from KTVU. Clip number one is from KTVU Fox Channel 2, San Francisco reparations under consideration, $5 million per person. And in this clip, you're going to hear the chair of the of San Francisco's African American Reparations Advisory Committee. His name is Eric McDonald. Let's go to clip one, please.
They heard more than 100 recommendations from a city-appointed reparations committee tasked with figuring out how to atone for centuries of slavery and systemic racism. San Francisco is considering a reparations proposal that includes a $5 lump sum payment for each eligible Black person. San Francisco could become the first major U.S. city to fund reparations as the idea gains traction in the country. Reparations advocates say the harms of slavery have continued since its official end in 1865. But critics say reparations are flawed and financially unfeasible. Before today's meeting, supporters held a rally to talk about why they believe reparations are needed.
We've heard a lot of critics, and even some of you may be questioning, why would we be seeking reparations for Black San Franciscans? Many folks often say that California and San Francisco specifically did not enslave Black people. And so there's lots of history that obviously needs to be researched, and I'm putting that responsibility on all of you to do that.
Black people make up 6% of San Francisco's population and 38% of its homeless residents. Today, supervisors expressed support for reparations that were presented to them, but that does not mean that all those recommendations will ultimately be adopted. The board can vote to approve, reject, or change any or all of those recommendations, and a final committee report is due in June.
All right, for more now, we are joined by Eric McDonald, chair of San Francisco's African American Reparations Advisory Committee. Thanks so much for joining us. I'd like to start off with what we're just hearing from the San Francisco NAACP, saying now that they would actually want to reject the reparations one-time payment in favor of investments in key areas of education, economy, housing, healthcare, and the Fillmore Heritage Center in the Black community. Can we get your thoughts on this new development?
Happy to share my thoughts. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me to come spend a few minutes with you all. Coming to that question, I would first say this is an historic day. It's a historic moment where we are having serious, intentional, deliberative conversations about reparations in San Francisco. Short time ago, not thought possible, and yet here we are. And so, as is expected, as the committee has done its hard work, developed this draft plan that we will work to make final in June, there are folks who are bringing all kinds of points of view, right, about it. So we respect that. I'm aware of the NAACP's perspective. without commenting deeply about it, I would say that represents an or context, and we are offering an and context. So we respect that the NAACP can obviously share its perspective. We as a committee as a whole don't share that perspective.
All right, so let's talk about the notion of these $5 million payments to individuals in San Francisco. You actually say this is a low figure. If you look at the totality of the harm that's been caused by slavery in this country, why do you believe that those cash payments are so crucial?
In answering that question, let me just make clear, there are 111 recommendations in the report. While I'm happy to speak to this one, I want to make it really clear, it is but one of 111, and our intention is to ensure that Black San Franciscans who have experienced significant harm over the history of San Francisco have opportunities in education and in health and in policy and in economic empowerment.
Okay, pause it right there, Doug. Pause it right there. We're coming up on a break. Okay, you listen to the African History Network show. We'll continue this on the other side of the break, and I'm going to break down some math to you also. But this is there were 111 recommendations made. We'll continue on the other side of the break. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. All right. Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a like. Give us a heart on this broadcast. Back from break in 3 minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 2 minutes. Back from break in 1 minute.
program are those of the producers and or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 910 AM Superstation or Adele Media. We've got the topics, the guests, the opinions, and the facts.
I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the After History Network show. We do recurring events and histories and much, much more. We're going to give you an update on what's going on. This is about self-preservation. We have to extinguish the fire of white supremacy. See, elections have consequences.
Catch it all right here on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. Okay, I want to go back to this clip. This is from KTVU Fox 2 in San Francisco from March 14th, 2023. San Francisco reparations under consideration, $5 million per person. Now, once again, there were 111 recommendations that were made. Okay, on Tuesday, March 14th at this meeting. Unfortunately, this one, $5 million per person, which is fantasy, is dominating the news, and that's what everybody's talking about. That's not going to happen. I'm going to break down the math here in just a minute for you. Payments of $5 million to every eligible Black adult, the elimination of personal debt and tax burden, guaranteed annual incomes of at least $1,000 for 250 years. That's not going to happen either. And homes in San Francisco for just $1 a family. These were more than 100 recommendations made by a city-appointed reparations committee tasked with the thorny question of how to atone for centuries of they're not with slavery in California. So whoever wrote this article doesn't understand the history of California. Systemic racism, yes. And the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, hearing the report for the first time Tuesday, voiced enthusiastic support for the ideas listed, with some saying money should not stop the city from doing the right thing. Okay, now that sounds money shouldn't stop. San Francisco's facing a $720 budget deficit over the next 2 years. The annual budget is $14 billion. We're going to get to the math in just a minute. They really need to focus on what's realistic and not get people's hopes up, because people are going to be very, very disappointed, because this the classical stuff is not going to work if you actually understand math. Several supervisors said they were surprised to hear pushback from politically liberal San Franciscans, apparently unaware that the legacy of slavery and racist policies continue to keep Black Americans bottom rungs of health, education, and economic prosperity, and overrepresentation in prisons and homeless populations, etc. Okay, let's go back to the clip, Doug, and backed it up about a minute. Let's go back to the clip.
In answering that question, let me just make clear, there are 111 recommendations in the report. While I'm happy to speak to this one, I want to make it really clear, it is but one of 111, and our intention is to ensure that Black San Franciscans who have experienced significant harm over the history of San Francisco have opportunities in education and in health and in policy and in economic empowerment. And so it seems as if many read the first section of economic empowerment and stopped. There are many. In terms of the $5 million, you cannot put a price on the cost of lives lost, properties lost, stress-induced health crises, the inability to create pathways to economic agency and self-achievement. You cannot put the price tag on that. And so, yes, therefore, my point of view is $5 million is an appropriate estimation. But again, the harm is actually priceless.
You know, there are conceptual thoughts to this, right? What you're talking about, the far-reaching effects, generations past of what an entire community is dealing with. But there are the logistics of this as well. When you talk about money, you talk about conditions on how you would qualify. You talk about the expectation of how this would actually actually be delivered. It's complicated. I mean, trying to imagine, one, how you afford it, how you do it, how you guarantee that this money is given to the people it's supposed to go to. How far down into those weeds are you? Or at this point, are you still saying, let's consider which one of these or how many of these 100 plus recommendations we can get behind, and then we'll figure out how to make it happen? Because in terms of a timeline of when this would actually come to some kind of reality, where are you in that space?
Sure thing. First of all, it's important to clear on what the charge of the task force is and what we hold. Our task is and has been to chronicle the harm, research and assess what that harm is, and then assign value to said harm. That was it. It's as if our role was to be an appraisal of the harm. It was not our role, is not our role. It was the role of the Board of Supervisors in the city to determine the path toward the enablement. That is not the task of the committee.
So,
we expect
to interrupt really quickly. You didn't go into this saying, "Is this possible?" You went into it saying, "What do we think should be?"
This is the cost, right? So we said, here's the value of the house. Now, what the market will bear, whether the market will in fact overpay or underspend, that's part of what the market will have to figure itself out. And as I said to the Board of Supervisors just today in chambers, they own this house now with all of its good and its bad. And they have an opportunity, and I would add a responsibility, right, to, on behalf of the city, own the harm that the city has perpetrated on Black lives for its lifetime. And therefore, what can the city, and will the city do now to make good on that harm? Start an apology, an acknowledgement of said harm, and then beginning to determine it will commit itself to doing.
And Eric, before we let you go, what was the sense you got from the Board of Supervisors? How optimistic are you that they will be open to some, all of these recommendations that your committee has put forward?
Sure. Thank you for that. So hopeful, quite candidly. I was pleasantly surprised that to a person, so each member of the Board of Supervisors took their opportunity to openly, and yes, in kind of the public setting, declare their commitment to reparations. Now, they didn't declare a commitment to individual recommendations. That is the conversation to come. That's the conversation they will take up when we submit a final report, which will happen in June of this year.
All right. And obviously we know, yes, a long way to go in this process here. We appreciate the conversation tonight with you, Eric McDonald, Chair of San Francisco's African American Reparations Advisory Committee. Thank you so much for the time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Sure.
Okay, so that was from March 14th, 2023, KTVU Fox Channel 2 in San Francisco. That's on their YouTube channel. All right, let me break this down mathematically so people can understand. And if you don't have experience handling budgets, never managed a city before, never was on a city task force or a committee or anything like that, this may be a little foreign, but let's break this down mathematically. San Francisco has an African-American population of about 50,000, a little less than 50,000 people. Based upon the requirement, and they talk about it in the article from ABC Channel 7 in San Francisco, and we're going to go to that clip in just a minute so you get to hear it. To be eligible, you're going to have to be at least 18 years or older, have lived in San Francisco, I think they said 10 years, identify on official documents as Black or African American for at least the past 10 years, and meet some other criteria as well. Okay. So say hypothetically that out of about 50,000 African Americans, you have 20,000 who are eligible. They meet the requirements. 20,000 times 5 million is $100 billion. The annual budget of San Francisco is $14 billion. San Francisco is facing a $720 million budget deficit over the next 2 years. If they did $100 billion, if they said, okay, we're gonna pay out $100 billion, that's like what, almost 8 times the annual budget of San Francisco? That's not going to happen. That's fantasy. That's not even going to happen with math that Donald Trump does when he's trying to scheme the federal government. That's not going to happen. That's fantasy. That's totally unrealistic. And people sitting up here arguing over fantasy. Now, it's not a matter of are African Americans owed that. That ain't the question. The question is, at the bottom line is, are you going to get it? Hell no. The money don't exist to do that. Not for say a city don't have that type of money. That's totally unrealistic. And what this is doing now, the people who proposed the $5 million, I think the people probably meant well. They may not have known it's going to blow up like this, but what has done is taken away attention from like realistic remedies. And nobody's advocating for just one thing. That nobody's saying, well, there should just be one thing out of the 111. No, it's going to be, we need comprehensive reparations, even in San Francisco. This right here is fantasy. That's not going to happen. Even if it's only 10,000 out of 50,000, that's 50 billion. That's like what, 4 times the annual budget? We'll deal with this on the other side of the break because it's important for our people to deal with things that are realistic as opposed to dealing with nonsensical fantasy and then get upset when they don't get fantasy. I don't even understand that mentality. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, back from break in 4 minutes. Back from break in 4 minutes. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much you think that you're owed. The only thing that matters is how much you can actually collect. Even if the board of supervisors says, yeah, we're going to do that, try to pay it. Nobody's talking about the lawsuits that are going to be filed to block that. We'll deal with that on the other side of the break. If they're filing lawsuits to block Joe Biden's student loan forgiveness, his executive order, and in addition to millions of African Americans, it's going to help millions of white people. You think Republicans are not going to file lawsuits to block this, and this is for black people? You rolling down the street smoking endo, sipping on gin and juice if you think that's reality. All right, stand by, back from break in 3 minutes. Okay, we're going to clip number 2. Back from break in 3 minutes. Clip number 2 is San Francisco. All right, stand by. Back from break in 1 minute. Back from break in 1 minute.
The opinions and the facts.
I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the After History Network Show. We do with current events and history and much, much more. We're going to give you an update on what's going on. This is about self-preservation. We have to extinguish the fire of white supremacy. See, elections have consequences.
Catch it all right here on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the African History Network show. All right, the calling number is 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. Okay, so I want to go to this article here. I talked about this on Faraji Muhammad Show, The Culture, this past Thursday. This is from the Washington Post. We're going to clip 2 just a minute here, Doug. San Francisco debates reparations, $5 million for each Black residents. Okay, now this article is from February 27, 2023. This article came out before the Tuesday, March 14th, 2023 meeting. This is a really good article from Emmanuel Felton for the Washington Post. And in paragraph 2, he talks about the Fillmore District. The Fillmore District is also mentioned in the executive summary of the 500-page study that the California Reparations Task Force did. I'm going to show you some of that study also, because everybody who's talking about reparations, everybody who's commenting on it, you should go and at least read the 22-page executive summary so you have a better understanding of what it is that you're actually talking about. In the 1960s, city leaders demolished part of the Fillmore District, a neighborhood once known as the Harlem of the West, displacing 883 businesses and 20,000 people, most of them African American. Now, decades later, thousands of people remain displaced, and the neighborhood has turned into a predominantly white enclave of multi-million-dollar homes. It's better known as gentrification. To compensate for that and other instances of racial discrimination, the city's African American Reparations Advisory Committee, you just heard Eric McDonald in the previous segment. Eric McDonald is he's the chair of the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee. You just heard him in the piece from Channel 2, Fox KTVU in San Francisco. The city's African American Reparations Advisory Committee recently recommended that qualifying Black residents receive $5 million each in reparations. Now, quote, there wasn't a math formula, said Eric McDonald, who we just heard from. There wasn't a math formula. And he is the principal of Peacock Partnerships, a San Francisco-based consulting firm. He said, quote, it was a journey for the committee towards what could represent a significant enough investment in families to put them on this path to economic well-being, growing, and vitality that chattel slavery and all the policies that flowed from it destroyed, end quote. Just keep in mind, for you doesn't have a real history of slavery. The article from the Washington Post from Emmanuel Felton goes on to say, the proposed reparations program is not a recompense for slavery, which was never legal in San Francisco, but instead the report says for, quote, the public sees explicitly created to subjugate Black people in San Francisco by upholding and expanding the intent and legacy of slavery, end quote. Upholding and expanding the intent and legacy of chattel slavery, end quote. Across the country, more than a dozen cities and states have begun developing reparations programs. Like there's a task force here in Detroit that started. I know some people on it, attempting to quantify the financial damage brought by slavery and decades of Jim Crow laws, Some proposals envision offering scholarships or housing vouchers, while others call for Black Americans to receive cash payment. Now, once again, it don't matter how much you think that you're owed. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is what you can actually collect. That's the bottom line. Okay, I want to go to clip number 2. Now, this is from Channel 7 ABC out of San Francisco. This deals with San Francisco supervisors voice early support to provide reparations for Black residents, includes $5 million payouts. Let's go to clip number 2, please, Doug.
Area means focusing on issues of race and social justice. A San Francisco committee formed in 2020 is now proposing a $5 million reparations. Each Black resident in the city. Can a city even afford that kind of money? ABC 7 News reporter Tim Johns is here with the story.
What happened?
Yeah, now it's important to note that while $5 million figure is certainly the headline grabber, the proposal also includes other recommendations for things like housing, job
All right, Doug, refresh the screen. Refresh
creation
it.
and education, among others. A one-time $5 million payment, that's what could be coming.
All right, refresh the screen. We'll deal with this on the other side of the break, Doug. Refresh the screen. Let me continue because we got a couple of minutes left in this segment here. We'll play that on the other side of the break. Now, let me go to the study that the California Reparations Task Force did. Let's look at the executive summary, okay? And for this information, you can just Google California Reparations Task Force. I'll give you the link here to the actual study in just a minute, all right? This is the executive summary. It's a 28-page executive summary. And let me see, we have it up. Yeah, 28-page executive summary here. I want to go to, let's go to this right here. California. Okay. However, throughout the rest of American history, instead of abolishing the badges and incidents of the United States federal, state, and local governments, including California, perpetuated and created new iterations of these badges and incidents. The resulting harms have been innumerable and have snowballed over generations. This interim report, which came out June 1st, 2022, is a general survey of these harms as part of the broader efforts of the California Task Force to study and develop reparations proposals for African Americans. Okay, we'll continue this on the other side of the break. You listen to the African History Network show. Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. Back from break in 4 minutes. Bathroom break in 2 minutes. Bathroom break in 1 minute. How's everybody doing? Give us a, okay, bathroom break in 1 minute. Give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us a like on this broadcast. You can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show.
Superstation, a division of Adele Media. The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 910 AM Superstation or Adele Media. We've got the topics, the guests, the opinions, and the facts.
I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. You know, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We do recurring events and history and much, much more. We're going to give you an update on what's going on. This is about self-preservation. We have to extinguish the fire of white supremacy. See, let's just have consequences.
Catch it all right here on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is a calling number if you have a question or comment. You can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. We have the links on the homepage of our website, TheAHNShow.com. So just keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting the African History Network show. We're celebrating 13-year anniversary of me doing the African History Network show. Casted March 10th, 2010 on the Harambe Radio Network, then went over to Blog Talk Radio. Then I was on the Empowerment Radio Network with Dave Anderson and Roland Martin and Warren Ballantyne and Bev Smith and some other people, Rashad Ritchie, on the nasty. I was doing nasty syndicated radio. I was doing the Michael Imhotep show there, and I was guest hosting for Roland Martin and before Roland, Warren Ballantyne. And then 10, it'll be 7 years in April of this year. Next month, it'll be 7 years here on 910 AM WFDF. So we have our PayPal Cash App information there. Also, you can register for the online history classes that I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. Ancient Kemet, the more understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. We also have a video here that's a preview of some of the content of African empires that Europeans tried to steal and claim as their own. We had a fantastic class on Saturday, March 18th. Next class is next Saturday, which is March 5th. And then today I taught my Sunday class, which is resistance movements from the Haitian Revolution, the U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power movements, the Black Power movement, 1800 to 1968. So you can register for that course also. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime, even after the course is over with. You'll still have full access. And we have a bundle pack, which is our best value We have a bundle pack where you get both classes for only $120. That's a $300 value. There are 5 free lectures that will be in the video library. Also 5 of my lectures that you'll be able to watch as well. Saturday, 12:30 p.m., I did a free online lecture, Great African Women in History, the Motherization. If it's that, you can go to our website, TheAHNShow, still register for that and watch that. That's in honor of Women's History Month or Black Women's History Month. And I think we'll do part 2 of that next, this coming Saturday on the 25th at 12 noon. We'll see how much energy I have. Okay. Right before the break, we were dealing with the Reparations Task Force out of California and San Francisco. We'll go back to the report that I was showing you. We're looking at the executive summary of the report from California, but I want to go back to this clip because I think we have it working correctly now. It was buffering right before the break. This is dealing with San Francisco's Reparations Task Force and the 100 plus proposals that came out this past Tuesday, including the $5 million, which is totally unrealistic. Let's go to clip number 2, please, Doug.
Issues of race and social justice. A San Francisco committee formed in 2020 is now proposing a better Bay Area means focusing on issues of race and social justice. A San Francisco committee formed in 2020 is now of race and social justice. A San Francisco committee formed in 2020 is now proposing a $5 million reparations payment.
All right, Doug, this is still buffering. So what we're going to do, we're not going to deal with that. We're going to queue up clip 3, start clip 3 at the 2 minute, 14 second mark. We'll go to clip 3 here in just a second. That's from the culture with Faraji Muhammad. We'll go to that in just a minute here. Let me go back to the executive summary from the California Reparations Task Force. Now, their study focuses on 12 specific areas of systemic discrimination, okay? And it says on page 1 of the executive summary, so thoroughly have the effects of slavery infected every aspect of American society over the last 400 years, that it is nearly impossible to identify every badge and incident of slavery, to include every piece of evidence, or describe every harm done to African Americans. In order to address this practical reality, this interim report of the Reparations Task describes a sample of government actions, and the compounding harms that have resulted. And that's the most important thing, the compounding harms that have resulted. Organized into 12 specific areas of systemic discrimination. In order to maintain slavery, government actors adopted white supremacist beliefs and passed laws to create a racial hierarchy and to control both enslaved and free African Americans. Although the U.S. Constitution recognized African Americans as citizens on paper, the government failed to give them the full rights of citizenship and failed to protect and often sanctioned or directly participated African Americans from white and failed to protect and often sanctioned or directly participated African Americans from widespread terror and violence, along with a dereliction of duty of its duty to protect its Black citizens, direct federal, state, and local government actions, continue to enforce the racist lies created to justify slavery. These laws and government-supported cultural beliefs have since formed the foundation of innumerable modern laws, policies, and practices across the nation. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so then they go through and they look at 12 areas of harm. We'll come back to that. You can check this out. Now, they also have this picture here. More than 50% of U.S. presidents from 1789 to 1885 enslaved African Americans. Okay. I'm not, when they say 1885, chattel slavery ended in 1865. So I think they need to go revisit that. There's like there may have been some after Rutherford B. Hayes, and then maybe they mean after, maybe previously they're saying that they own slaves. I don't know. They need to look at that again. But okay. This is the executive summary. Now you can go to, here's how you can find that. If you go to Rob Bonta, Attorney General, State of California, and the website is oag.ca.gov, oag.ca.gov. You can also just Google AB 3121 Reparations Task Force, AB 3121 Reparations Task Force. Okay. And when you scroll down, they have the full interim report, which is 500 pages. There's a PDF of it, the executive summary, key findings, and preliminary recommendations. All right. Now, I was on Thursday, March 16th. I was on the Culture, Faraji Muhammad Show, the Culture on Roland Martin's network, the Black Star Media Network. Suzette Speaks, who's a YouTube personality. She was sitting in for Faraji, and we talked about what's going on in San Francisco. Okay. And I want to go to, let's see, back that up. I want to go to that clip here. Okay, let's go to clip number 2, Doug. I mean, clip number 3. Let's go to clip number 3 from the Culture.
Of a one-time payment going to African Americans who are eligible, who would be eligible in the city of San Francisco, not for slavery, because San Francisco does not have a history of slavery, just as, generally speaking, California does not have a history of slavery, because California came into the Union in 1850 as a free state, not a slaveholding state. So this would be, according to the article from CNN.com called San Francisco Leaders Show Early Support for $5 million reparation payments for eligible Black residents. It says that San Francisco's Reparations Committee, which was created in 2020 to craft a plan to address institutional city-sanctioned harm inflicted upon African American communities. Okay, so this would be a one-time payment of $5 million, and it's not. Now you have some on the committee who support this. However, generally speaking, understanding the finances of San Francisco, and San Francisco has a $728 million budget deficit over the next 2 years, it's unlikely that this will actually be implemented. Okay, but you have the California Reparations Task Force, which is at the state level. You also have a San Francisco Reparations Task Force as well, and the $5 million were some of the more than 100 recommendations made by a city-appointed reparations committee tasked with the question of how to repair the damage of systemic racism, redlining, housing discrimination, things like this in the city of San Francisco.
Okay, wonderful foundation laid. Thank you for that. This is the CNN article we are referencing, guys. You can go check it out on CNN.com. It's up there. San Francisco leaders show early support for $5 million reparations payment for eligible Black residents. So my question to you, Mr. Imhotep, why is California like the standout? Is it just the progressive nature of politics there? I don't hear coming out of other states, or maybe there are other programs or considerations being made. Of course, we've heard, a couple of cities do things like maybe give housing down payments.
Sure. That was Evanston, Illinois. So let me address that. Okay.
Go ahead, brother. I know you know that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Let's take Evanston, Illinois first, because the person who spearheaded that, her name was Robin Ruth Simmons. I interviewed her on the African History Network show for an hour, okay, to break down what actually happened. Now, the state of Illinois abolished slavery in 1818. Evanston, Illinois, the city of Evanston, Illinois, wasn't founded until the 1840s. You had a lot of woke-ass people running around who didn't do research, who said, oh, they should do reparations for slavery, things like this. Evanston does not have a history of slavery. So when you have a city, they're not going to do reparations to repair the damage of something that the city did not inflict. When you look at what San Francisco is doing, or what they're proposing, they are saying specifically they are working to repair the damage that the city inflicted upon African Americans. Not what the state did, not what the federal government did, because they don't have those type of resources. Evanston, Illinois is a city of approximately 60,000 people with a percentage of African Americans at 16% and declining. They don't have a history of slavery, but they had a rampant history of housing discrimination and redlining, and there's still some African Americans alive today who live in Evanston who are the victims of the housing discrimination and redlining. So this is what they...
Pause it right there. Do me a favor. Pause it right there, Doug. Pause it right there. Pause it right there. All right. Very quickly here before we go to break. So somebody asked a question, what is realistic? Okay, so let's do some more math. California has established a separate state reparations task force. And all right, we'll continue this on the other side. Of California has established a separate state reparations task force and asked a team of 5 economists to quantify the cost of discrimination that the state's Black population has faced. The team calculated California's maximum liability for discriminatory housing policies between 1933 and 1977 and set it on a figure of $569 billion. Now, that ain't realistic either, but they have a formula. And if they do something along these lines, it's not going to be along the lines of 569 billion. They ain't going to be along this, but at least they have a formula and they're looking at specific harm. They're looking at a documented history of discriminatory housing policies between 1933 and 1977. They settled on a figure of 569 billion. That would work out to $223,239 for every Black California resident. They have a formula. If they do something along those lines, it's not going to be nearly as much as that, but at least it's something that you can justify, because the $5 million number wasn't based upon that wasn't a number that came from a formula. That was just a number that they pulled out the sky. This is addressing a specific harm that was, now this is from the California Reparations Task Force, but this is directed toward a specific harm that the state of California inflicted upon African Americans. Read the article from Washington Post. San Francisco debates reparations, $5 million each for Black residents. It's that article there from the Washington Post. Then Dr. William Darity, he recommended, let me see, this is at the federal level here from Dr. William Darity. That was 350,000, but that's based upon, that's dealing with the racial wealth gap. Where's that piece? Hold on, we're back from break in 3 minutes. Stand by. This is at the federal level. In the page, right here.
History and much more. We're going to give you an update on what's going on. This is about self-preservation. We have to extinguish the fire of white supremacy. See, elections have consequences.
Catch it all right here on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the African History Network show. Okay, the calling number is 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600. Here's the calling number if you have a question or comment. Okay, Doug, we're gonna go back to that clip. Started at the 8-minute mark. Okay, let's go back to that clip from the culture. Started at the 8-minute mark. We were discussing the California and San Francisco reparations tax. Let's go back to the clip,
please. Well, which is why, if we're seeking a legal remedy to a historical problem, we must understand both law and history.
Well said, brother. Okay, I'm following you. I'm reading the chat. Y'all come on through with your questions. I see a chat member going by Oil King. And in his opinion, he has stated that he does not believe housing vouchers, so to speak, to be reparations. I think we need to define terms because you've laid out, there is a school of thinking that it goes back to, the institution of slavery. There's a school of thinking that there was wrong committed by law against citizens of African descent and were sanctioned by a local municipality or the state itself or the federal government itself. And we can't get that, and I will talk to you about that after the break, why it hasn't gotten more traction in the federal government. But nonetheless, so what we have is a hodgepodge of ideas, and I'm grateful for some of the comments. I'm going to bring them up after the break. When it comes
I need to address that first comment.
Yeah, go ahead and put up Oil King's comment. Thank you, Oil King, for being here, and I'm grateful for all my culture crew who are letting us know how they really feel. But this is what he wrote. He wrote, why is this considered reparations? How do you respond to that, please, Michael?
Well, reparations for what? The concept of reparations means repairing the damage or something. That's why you first have to understand what it is you're about. This is why a lot of arguments dealing with reparations I don't get involved in, because I'm listening to people and they don't understand history, law, politics, and economics. Evanston, Illinois has no history of slavery. So why is a city of 60,000 people going to pass a law to address something that didn't happen in the city and the city was not responsible for? The city was responsible for housing discrimination against Black people. Therefore, the city is going to implement laws to repair the damage that they are responsible for. We have to understand what it is we're talking about before we can seek a remedy for it. Reparations, the root concept, means to repair the harm, to make you whole again, to repair the damage of something that was done. You're trying to go in the left direction, but don't understand you should go in the right direction. Now, you need to repair the damage of a legacy of slavery and decades of Jim Crow. It's not just slavery. Chattel slavery ended something like 157 years ago. Decades of Jim Crow segregation, redlining, housing discrimination, voter suppression. What we're dealing with today is the culmination, the accumulative effect of all that what happened after chattel slavery ended when the U.S. Constitution, when the 13th Amendment was ratified December 6, 1865. You have to look at the collapse of the end of Reconstruction, collapse of the Freedmen's Bank, understanding the redlining that was created by the federal government, understanding why you have African-American homes at a value of $48,000 less than comparable white homes, which is a cumulative effect of $156 billion less net worth for African-American homes than comparable white homes. So that's dealing with a legacy that happened after slavery ended. So when we deal with repairing the damage of a history of slavery and all that happened after that, we have to change the laws and policies that were put in place that continue to inflict the harm today. Cash payments are not going to do that. Cash payments can be part of a comprehensive reparations problem where anybody with any intelligence who understands the spending habits of African Americans know damn well if we all got $1 million a day, white people will have it all back by this time next week. And the only thing you would have done is stimulate their economy, but the laws and policies that now distributing wealth, power, and resources will still be in place, still inflict the harm, and you haven't repaired the damage.
Well, we're doing work over here. Michael is really breaking it down. Let's put up Chris Big. I see your comment there, brother. Says reparations really is the wrong word. Again, we're getting context now. To as far as damages go in terms of the law in the United States, consequential damages is one type of damages we would be eligible for under the law. Okay, I'm getting into the legalese here.
And personally speaking, understanding white supremacy, I would take the name reparations off of, because anytime you say reparations, it automatically brings up resistance. I would talk more understanding that most of the people who got to vote for these policies are white, especially at the federal level. Okay, I would talk about the actual policies and how it's going to help not just African Americans, but help America in general, because anything that benefits African Americans is going to help America in general. The executive order that President Joe Biden did for student loan forgiveness, that's going to move 500,000 African American families from a negative net worth to a positive net worth, but it will also benefit white people as well. It's going to really help a lot of African Americans, okay, and discharge a little more than 25% of our student loan debt is going to be discharged when you talk about African Americans, but it's also going to help a lot of white people also. So what's good for African Americans is also good for America. So when we present these remedies, when we present these policies, understanding that the majority of the people in the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate who have to vote for this are white, you also need to talk about how it's going to help them and their constituents as well, not just African Americans, if you actually want to get something accomplished.
I love it. We're peeling the layers, y'all, but we got to take a quick break. I'm here with Michael Imhotep doing work, y'all. This is the culture. We'll be back with more right after this. Hey, welcome back to The Culture. This is Suzette Speaks, sitting in for Faraji Muhammad. I'm here with my brother, Mr. Michael Imhotep, who is teaching y'all about what it is that's happening on the West Coast over in San Francisco. There has been a movement towards reparations for certain qualifying Black residents, and we're having a robust conversation here. I'm going to put up a few of your quotes. Let's bring back Michael Imhotep now. I see you in the chat, y'all. I see everybody, and I'm going to only be able to read a few. Let's go to a quote I saw by Mimi D 726, the Culture Crew regular. Thank you for being here, sis. I see she writes that if the government gave us real reparations, now this is a contention I've seen brought up many times when this discussion comes forward, Michael. The cost, right? That would bankrupt this country. Are we cool with that? How do we address this when we were having the conversation, whether it be on the municipal level, right, or whether it be, state, or even next we'll talk about the federal levels, but what about the cost? How do we address that? Because I'm thinking $5 million possibly per resident qualifies in San Francisco. Like you said, budgetarily, it doesn't even kind of come.
That ain't gonna happen. Don't look for your check in the mail if you.
That's what people will say. So how do you respond to a comment like this?
Well, first of all, what are you repairing the damage of? You first have to analyze what happened to African people and analyze the damage that was inflicted to then understand how to repair the damage. Okay, this is why you have to understand the laws and policies that were put in place, the voter suppression, the housing discrimination. And one of the main ways that people have accumulated homes and have accumulated wealth in this country is through ownership of homes. One of the biggest programs to do that was the GI Bill, 1945, 1946. And from about 1946 to 1970, $67 billion was invested into the GI Bill. This gave low interest loans to veterans of World War II and who served in the military to get low interest loans to buy homes, start businesses, and to go to school, go to college. Okay. Largely speaking, African Americans were heavily discriminated against that, even though we served in World War II, even though we earned those benefits and our taxpayer dollars were paying for them. So when we talk about the cost of reparations, one, just giving a check don't solve. Just giving a check does not repair the damage that was done. Okay, and then you have people who say, "Well, our ancestors worked for free for X amount for 246 years," things like this. Yes, there were 262 skills, trades, and crafts that our people had in this country from 1619 to 1865. Now, how do you enforce that? What law? Now, this may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. I don't play games with people. When you understand getting reparations, you have to have a legal foundation. to be able to enforce what it is you say that you want. What law are you citing that slaves were supposed to be paid in the first place? Yes, slavery was morally wrong. I agree. Yes, it should not have happened. But when you study the laws of this country, when you study the U.S. Constitution, which is the first legal document that you should read, slavery was sanctioned by the U.S. Constitution. It was legal. So what law are you citing that slaves were supposed to be paid? This is why the legal arguments that we make for this have to be different than a lot of the arguments that have been made in the past. One of the legal arguments, and I've talked about it on this show, deals with enforcing the Black Freedmen and Indian Treaties of 1866, which is what one of my teachers, Dr. Claude Anderson, has been fighting and enforced for years. And then more recently, Attorney Demario Solomon Simmons, who is of Muskogee Creek ancestry and who is a frequent panelist on Roland Martin Unfiltered as well. He's been fighting for that because that is an actual example of us getting some type of restitution or reparations from the 5 civilized tribes of Native Americans, the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Cherokee, and Seminole Indians, who all owned African slaves. And then after the Civil War ended, they were forced by the federal government to allocate land to those Africans that they own and set them free and give them membership in those Native American tribes, give them all the rights and privileges.
All right, pause it right there, Doug. Pause it right there. We'll pick this up on the other side of the break, and then I'm going to let you hear what happened when I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday, March 17th as well. You listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Back from break in 4 minutes. All right, back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 2 minutes. All right, give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us a like on this broadcast. You can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App. $ the AHN show through Cash App or through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show.
We deal with a number of different topics here on the After History Network show. We do current events and history and much, much more. We're going to give you an update on what's going on. This is about self-preservation. We have to extinguish the fire of white supremacy so elections have consequences.
Catch it all right here on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the African History Network show. Okay, we're going to go back to this clip, then we'll go to the phone lines. We'll go to Jerome on line one. Stand by, Jerome. We're going back to this clip, Doug, and cue it up at the 17-minute mark. I can't remember if I told you that or not, but yeah, 17-minute mark. Back it up to that. Now, this is from March 16th. Thursday, March 16th, 2023. I was on Faraji Muhammad's show, The Culture, and we were discussing what's going on in California with reparations. Let's go back to this clip, please.
For this have to be different than a lot of the arguments that have been made in the past. One of the legal arguments, and I've talked about it on this show, deals with enforcing the Black Freedmen and Indian Treaties of 1866, which is what one of my teachers, Dr. Claude Anderson, has been fighting and enforced for years. And then more recently, Attorney Demario Solomon Simmons, who is Muskogee Creek ancestry and who is a frequent panelist on Roland Martin and Unfiltered as well. He's been fighting for that because that is an actual of us getting some type of restitution or reparations from the 5 civilized tribes of Native Americans, the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Cherokee, and Seminole Indians, who all owned African slaves. And then after the Civil War ended, they were forced by the federal government to allocate land to those Africans that they own and set them free and give them membership in those Native American tribes, give them all the rights and privileges of Native Americans. When you study Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, we love to talk about Black Wall Street. I've studied the history of it. But we don't understand that Tulsa, Oklahoma was founded by Creek Indians around 1834. And when they went into Oklahoma, they took their African slaves with them. And a lot of the early African-American landowners in what will become Black Wall Street, which was that business district, which began at the intersection of Greenwood, Arch, and Pine. A lot of those early African-Americans gained land from those Black Freedmen Indian treaties, which are still in effect today. But many of our ancestors were being pushed out of those treaties starting in 1941. So I'm for what will ever work when it comes to repairing the damage of a legacy of slavery, Jim Crow segregation, and racism and redlining. To understand what will work, we need to understand the history of what has worked. And what has worked, and there's documented evidence of that, are the Black Freedmen Indian Treaties of 1866.
Heck yeah, I'm gonna jump right in here because I say just let him go because I know this is a passionate subject matter for you. I'm gonna put up another, based on what you just said, sir, you're doing work, quote from Jacqueline Boateng, I think is how you pronounce it, because what you have just mentioned is that there are different aspects of what could be considered, and the term is probably imperfect, reparations. But Jacqueline brings up reparation can come in the form of housing, education, healthcare, employment, and farming. Hello, somebody, because again, Black farmers have been through it. So
we lost millions of acres of land coming from being discriminated against from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It's harm upon us.
USDA has done by law some of the most heinous things and created the most damage and removed the most land, right, from people of Black heritage. So when it comes to the check, because that's, I think some people are very hung up on the dollar amount, but there's other forms reparations can take. Would it be better, or is it, like you said, depending on what was lost in the first place, as a remedy of what loss was in effect in the first place? But talk about the various types of reparations, even here in this specific case in California, in San Francisco, are being considered. Now, the headline gave you the $5 million per person, right? But there were other suggested remedies, over 100 in fact. So can you talk about what other, even in the broader sense or directly related to the San Francisco proposal, forms of reparations that are being suggested?
Various forms could be free college tuition, going a certain period of year without having to pay taxes. It could be allocation of land. For instance, just generally speaking, when you study the Homestead Act in this country, the Homestead Act of 1862. It gave over approximately 250, 260 million acres of land, largely to white people in this country. They had to maintain the land for 5 years, and they had to pay the taxes on the land, okay? And then after 5 years, the land was theirs, okay? Well, you have tens of thousands of families, largely white families today, that still have land in their families that was given starting in 1862, but they gave away land for over 100 years. They kept giving away land up until about the 1970s or early 1980s. All right. Largely, African Americans were locked out of this massive land giveaway. That's the Homestead Act of 1862. Okay. This was legal. And this is an example of how we were being discriminated against. Then you have the Southern Homestead Act of 1866 that gave away about 45 million acres of land as well. So when we study the history here of massive land giveaways, then when you talk about housing is extremely important, because that's one of the main ways that people create wealth in this country. And because of redlining, which was created by the U.S. federal government around 1937, and what redlining did was they took a map and they drew red lines around areas where African Americans live. And what happened was they made it either impossible to get homeowners insurance or insurance for businesses in those areas, or you had to pay a very high rate, okay? And then we were discriminated against when it came to get low interest loans. Like when you have the suburbs that are being built after World War II, okay? You have white people who were able to get 3% down on low interest loans to get homes built out in the suburbs. African Americans were largely locked out of being able to take advantage of those benefits we earn in our taxpayer dollars paid for. So we're locked in the inner city. Then the U.S. Interstate Highway Acts in 1952 and 1956 drive 41,000 miles of U.S. interstate highways all across the country. Comes right through Detroit, right near where I live. I live where Black Bottom was, right here in Detroit. It wipes out thousands of homes and businesses. This place is about 1 million people. The article that I posted here called Bulldozed and Bisected is an excellent analysis from NBC News that documents this, okay? Well, the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill that only 19 Republicans in the Senate and only 14 in the House voted for, that's going to start to repair that damage that the U.S. government did through the U.S. Interstate Highway Act. Okay, wiping out homes, wiping out businesses. It's going to start repairing those neighborhoods where the expressways went right through. So housing is extremely important, especially now with the cost of housing increasing, because during the 2 years of COVID, they weren't building new homes. So you have a crunch when it comes to housing stock. You think I wouldn't want a house right now? Absolutely. That's one of, really tell you the truth, that's one of the first things that we should be going after. Home ownership.
We got to take a quick break, y'all.
Pause it right there. Pause it right there, Doug. Pause it right there. Pause the clip right there. All right. We're going to the phone lines. Okay, you can watch that. We'll be broadcasting that throughout the week on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. It's on Roland Martin's YouTube channel, Roland Martin. That's from Thursday, March 16th. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to Jerome, line 1. Thanks for holding, Jerome. Sorry for the wait. Go ahead with your question or comment.
Yes, thank you for letting me join your discussion. This is interesting. Here in Detroit, I actually 2 weeks ago I was in Lansing, and I was there all day long. And I talked to legislators, I talked to lawmakers, and on both sides. But what was interesting is that some of the representatives was kind of surprised when I mentioned certification, and they said that they didn't even think of it that way or that angle. I think it would set a precedent. It won't do anything for reparations, but the evidence shows that the 20-year emergency management of our schools, the damage that was done to our children, and also they did not have legal representation against the state of Michigan. They had it against the school board, but not against the state of Michigan with their decisions in terms of taking away their school center building and studio, taking everything out of the curriculum on purpose. And they never had a headline report on any of it. And simply, It won't change any laws, but it will force certification of all existing laws, and everybody who has any type of profession, whether it's policing or teaching or a doctor, lawyer, whatever you have, it will force certification. And this is the reason that Governor DeSantis and all the other states that have resolutions on keeping your history out of the books. This is the reason that Donald Trump and all of them and all of these rich folks who are trying to keep the history out of history books is only going to prove what the damages are and how they're responsible for it.
Okay.
And one more thing, real quick.
Real quick.
Right here, we have a task force right here in Detroit, and they don't want the school system to be part of the task force, reparations task force, right here, right now. And that's on purpose because it's going to prove all of the divesting on all of the housing with the land bank and all the projects going on to keep you from prospering.
Right.
So that's something. And also, how is Dr. Anderson doing? I heard he was kind of sick.
Well, Dr. Anderson, he's recovering from heart surgery. Okay, I got to reach out to him and see how he's doing. Okay, all right, thanks for calling, Dr. Claude Anderson. He's referring to. Okay, when we let's see, let's go back to this article here quickly from the Washington Post. This deals with. So it was talking about Dr. William Darity, the economist, says Black Americans should receive at least $350,000 each in a federal reparations program. This is federal, not state or city. A figure based on his calculation of the country's racial wealth gap. Okay, we'll pick this up on the other side of the break. I'll let you hear also what happened on Roland Martin Unfiltered when I was on Friday. And we spoke with Dr. Amos Brown, president of the San Francisco chapter of the NAACP. You listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, back from break in 4 minutes. Back from break in 4 minutes. All right, stand by, everybody. Back from break in 2 minutes. Back from break in 1 minute. I'm going to clip 4.
the opinions, and the facts.
I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the After History Network show. We do recurring events and histories and much, much more. We're going to give you an update on what's going on.
This is about self-preservation. We have to extinguish the fire of white supremacy. See, elections have consequences.
Catch it all right here on 910 AM Superstation.
All right, welcome back to the African History Network show. Okay, if we go back to this article quickly here from the Washington Post, and name of this article is San Francisco Debates Reparations, $5 million each for Black residents. This is from February 27, 2023. So they quote Dr. William Darity here, and they were talking about how he says Black Americans should receive at least $350,000 each in federal reparations, not from the city, but from federal reparations. This is a figure based on his calculation of the country's racial wealth gap. He said, quote, "We see the racial wealth gap as this core indicator of the cumulative effects over time of white racism and white supremacy on living Black Americans whose ancestors were enslaved here." And he's a public policy professor at Duke University. Okay, and then it goes and talks about California and what a team of five economists quantified the cost of discrimination that the state of California's African-American population faced. And they looked at discriminatory housing policies between 1933 and 1977. And settled on a figure of $569 billion. That would work out to $223,239 for every Black California resident. That's based upon a formula. That's upon quantifying the harm. That's not going to happen either, though. $569 billion, we know that's not going to happen. But at least you have some type of justification. It's not a number you just pulled out of the sky. All right. So check out this article here. Okay, now we're going to clip 4, Doug. Friday, March 17th, I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered. We spoke with Dr. Amos C. Brown, who is the president of the San Francisco chapter at NAACP. And here's what happened there. Let's go to this clip. Okay, you had the clip I emailed you, clip 4.
So, Dr. Brown, so here's the deal. Got to my iPad. This is the press release that was sent out, and this is where I think there's confusion. The press release says the San Francisco NAACP today called upon the Board of Supervisors to reject a one-time $5 million reparations payment to Blacks, but instead call upon the city to make investments in 5 key areas to atone for history of racism, discrimination, and mistreatment. Now, you say, and it lays out in here what those 5 are, and that is invest in education, economic empowerment, housing, healthcare, and Fillmore Heritage Center. Now, you said that you believe in payment and this. So again. Yes. Okay, so but the statement doesn't address payments, and so people assumed
that was a misprint. That was a misprint. That line was left out of there. That was a misprint. But the basic position, what I'm saying, Brother Roland, is we definitely support payment, but you got to have a plan.
So Pastor Brown, I just want to be clear. Go back to my iPad. The statement that was released, the headline says San Francisco NAACP rejects $5 million reparations payment to Blacks. And then it says in a sub. So you're saying that this statement that was released publicly, this statement is wrong.
That's right.
So the San Francisco NAACP supports direct payments plus investments to the Black communities.
That's right. And in the 100 plus recommendations, some of the same things are listed what we introduced in 2019. You see, I introduced the idea of reparations to this community. On the 30th of July, 2019, for our national convention in Detroit, Michigan. So let there be no mistake about it. We support cash plus.
And so the state, so you support the $5 million, but you also to individual African Americans, but you also want further investment in Black institutions.
Even the $5 million is not enough for the hell, the horror, and the hardship of our people. You can't put a dollar sign on the oppression, enslavement, and downright insult and assault to our humanity. So that was a mistake that was made there regarding our position. And I'm setting the record straight now that we cash payment plus substantive programs. That's what we must have to turn things around for African Americans in this city. The median income for Blacks in this town is $30,000 a year. But for whites, $110,000. Latinos, Asians, it's between $75,000 and $80,000 a year. We're at the worst level when it comes to education and achievement in the school district. We still have the challenge of not being able to get jobs and our fair share of contracts from the public and private sectors, even with all the infrastructure work that's now going on in this city. You don't see Blacks handling this heavy equipment. They used to have us holding up signs to direct the traffic, but now you don't even see those jobs. We must understand that we got to approach things holistically, strategically, wisely, and not be cheapened when it comes to this issue of reparations.
All right. So the next question. Do you?
All right, pause it right there, Doug. Okay, those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching. We're going to keep going for just a few more minutes because I have to get out of here. This is my third broadcast today. Support the African History Network, $ TheAHNShow through Cash App and PayPal.me/TheAHNShow as well. Visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. Register for my online courses. We're celebrating the 13th anniversary of me broadcasting the African History Network show. Remember, right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. Peace. Okay, let's continue here. I'm going to continue with this clip because I want you to hear what I had to say as well when it came to me.
All right. So the next question. Do you believe that the San Francisco City Council is going to support $5 million cash payment?
From what they said on Tuesday night, and I sat there until 9:30, almost 10 o'clock, down to the nose. Gave these eloquent, flowery statements about our pain and what we deserve. But they said, we're not sure about cash payments. And in addition to that, one of the members, to be exact, Mr. Dorsey, the newest member on that board, this up for a vote before the citizens. So that kind of conversation, watch out.
So when is this?
They be tricked.
So when is this vote supposed to take place?
It is really, they put it off, Brother Roland, until October.
Okay.
And even the budget of the city will be adopted at the end of this June. So the money has got to come from somewhere. And this is the reason why there should be right now. So our people will not be misled. They will not be set up assuming that a check is going to be cut for them and cause us to be frustrated, angry, and sad again with disappointment. That's what our basic concern is. And it's unfortunate that this matter went out about the $5 million. The chair just said there was no mathematically, and also to say that this is just a figure that was thrown out there.
Okay. All right.
That's what makes it.
All right, Reverend Dr. Brown, we appreciate you joining us. I wish we had a better connection.
Thank you.
It was difficult, but we got the gist of what you said. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Michael, I'm gonna start with you. First of all, this is going exactly like we've always said it was going to go. That the moment you begin to put numbers out there, you're going to then face resistance. This also was a big screw up by the San Francisco NAACP. So you put a statement goes out saying they oppose direct payments. It's in the headline. Everybody runs with it. They're blasting the NAACP. Now Reverend Brown has to come out and say, no, that was a mistake. And so the chapter needs to be reissuing a statement or something along those lines, because this is what people believe.
Yeah. So first of all, Roland, we talked about the San Francisco Reparations Task Force yesterday on Faraji Muhammad Show, The Culture, right here on your network, the Black Star Media Network. And I've been following what's going on with California and San Francisco reparations. There were over 100 recommendations that were given at this meeting that just took place on Tuesday. What's happened, and there's been a lot of reparations activists, as well as Dr. William Darity, who've been critical of this $5 million number, because it's taken, first of all, it's unrealistic. It's totally unrealistic. San Francisco is dealing with a $728 million budget deficit over the next 2 years, okay? $5 million per, and there's about 50,000 African Americans in San Francisco. From what I understand, it's going to be, you have to be at least 18 years or older and meet some other criteria. And then it's also important to understand, in the state of California, race-based policies are illegal in the state of California. This is why the California Reparations Task Force, which Dr. Amos Brown also sits on, this is why they're going to distribute whatever they come up with based upon lineage as opposed to race, because they want to make sure it doesn't get overturned in court. Also, it's important to understand, when you study the history of California, California does not have a history of slavery. They do have a rampant history of racism, housing discrimination, redlining, segregation, voter suppression, etc. So, just very quickly, Dr. William Darity in this article from the Washington Post said, calling for $5 million payout by a local government undercuts the credibility of the reparations effort. So,
but here's the deal, though. There are people who disagree with Darity. So, I mean, and that's the point. You've got people who believe in it should be direct payments, others who believe in lineage based, and that's the deal. You've got different factions all operating at one time.
Roland, we need comprehensive reparations. The root concept.
But here's the deal. There are some people who still believe in comprehensive, but also individual payments.
I'm not against individual payments. What I'm saying is individual payments need to be realistic. Thinking that they're going to give $5 million to every black person who's 18 years or older in San Francisco is totally unrealistic. That ain't happening. And what happens is it distracts from other recommendations that are realistic, that could be attainable, and people are just focused on the $5 million. And when they don't get it, then a lot of them just want to throw up their hands. Okay, so we really have to, this is why we really have to understand history, but also understand law, and really how to get something that is really realistic and achievable, and make sure it does not get overturned in the court, because they're going to file lawsuits to block this, just like the lawsuits filed when it comes to student loan forgiveness and President Joe Biden's executive order. And we want to make sure that we're on strong legal footing, so whatever gets passed at the city level doesn't get overturned in the court.
So the San Francisco NAACP puts out a statement saying that they oppose direct payments of $5 million to San Francisco residents for reparations. Reverend Dr. Amos Brown just came on our show. He's on that task force in San Francisco, vice chair of the California task force. He says that was an error. That was not the case. They supported cash payments plus. This was all the sort of back and forth. City Council is going to actually make a determination about this possibly in October.
All right. So you can watch the rest of that. It's already been viewed about 55,000 times. It's just uploaded, I guess, Saturday, March 18th. But that's from Friday, March 17th, Roland Martin Unfiltered. So check that out at Roland Martin on YouTube or Facebook. Download the Black Star Media app. I'm on every Friday. I've been on over 2 years as a panelist on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Okay, just once again, a math lesson. Okay, let's look at this. The African American population in San Francisco is about a little less than 50,000. If the number of eligible African Americans is 20,000, okay, 18 or older, meet the criteria. Say if it's 20,000 times 5 million per 20,000 people, that's $100 billion. They're talking about a one-time payment of $5 million to 20,000 people. The annual budget for the city of San Francisco is $14 billion. Okay, so you're talking about that's like what, 8 times the annual budget, something like that, about 8 times the annual budget. Now, the let me see here. Okay, so yeah, it's like about 7 times the annual budget. Now, San Francisco is dealing with a budget deficit of $728 million over the next 2 years. And the article from the Washington Post that I cited, it discusses this. So hell no, this is not going to happen. Even if the supervisory board votes on it and agrees on it, I doubt a city council votes for this. Even if the city council votes for it, it's still not going to get paid. That's not going to happen. So we need to separate fantasy from things that are actually realistic that we can get, and stop dealing with simple Simon ass nonsense and arguing over just simple Simon ass nonsense. Now, the people that proposed the 5 million, they may have meant well, but it's not based on anything. It's not based on any formulas, nothing. Okay? And it causes a problem. And it brings about even more opposition to your efforts that already have opposition against them. So we need to learn from this. Seriously. And everybody should go read the 500-page study. Start with the 28-page executive summary from the California Reparations Task Force, because it deals with a ton of history, and our people are ignorant of history. I see the comments. I listen to what many of our people say. Half our people still think Willie Lynch historically existed. Willie Lynch never historically existed. Dr. Kwabena Ashanti created Willie Lynch about 1970. Professor Manu Ampem exposed Dr. Kwabena Ashanti as the creator of Willie Lynch. Number one, you don't read about a Willie Lynch in history. You don't read about abolitionists talk about Willie Lynch or anything like that. And their words in the Willie Lynch letter 1712 that are 20th century words, not 18th century words. And the sentence structure, the syntax, is the syntax of the 20th century, okay, the 1900s, not the 18th century, the 1700s. But check this out. This is at Attorney General Rob Bonta, Attorney General of California, Reparations Report, AB 3121, Reparations Task Force. You can Google that or go to oag.ca.gov, oag.ca.gov. And you can read the report there, the full interim report, which is 500 pages, executive summary, key findings, preliminary recommendations. All right, look, we have to get out of here. Support the African History Network, please. We definitely need your financial support. This helps us keep doing the research, pay some of the bills, because we have some financial challenges we got to take care of this week. We just had to upgrade the equipment and buy this new laptop because the technical difficulties, the buffer, the technical difficulties when I was playing the clip from Dr. Amos C. Brown, that was on his end. That's what Roland was talking about. It was a bad connection. If you watched it live, it was a bad connection on Dr. Amos C. Brown's end. That wasn't us on this end. I just had to buy this laptop. Ain't no joke either. What I had to invest in this thing to be able to teach the classes, do the research, do everything that we do, broadcast the show, etc. So that's why the quality looks better, the audio is better, the video, all of that is much better. You can support us $ the AHN Show through Cash App and through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. Also, you can register for the online history classes that I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. Saturdays is Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, where they didn't teach you in school. So we had a great class on the 25th, on the 18th, I should say. Our next class is on Saturday, March 25th, and that's 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Visit our website, TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com, TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. And be sure to follow us on our fan page, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep.